What's up guys, it's Tommy here and welcome to the Champions League final post-match analysis and reaction video. And sadly, my opinion, Man City, it was inevitable that they will win a Champions League. I think it's a Guardiola's failure that they have only won one Champions League since he took over in 7 seasons, and they went out to really mid-table mediocre sides before. And actually, I don't think they were the better team in the Champions League final. I think it was Inter who should have won this Champions League final because they actually created the better and the more clear-cut chances. They had more shots on target, more XG. They had almost double the amount of XG as Man City, and Lukaku cost Inter the Champions League final. Usually he's such a clutch player, but this season he has been in the majority of the games on the bench, and this is why he missed an absolute sitter of a header. Many people are talking about Ederson making a great save. He was just standing in the middle of the goal and Lukaku literally heads it against his leg, either side of the goalkeeper. It's a goal. And there was another instance where I think it was Di Marco who heads it down, a rebound after his looping header hit the crossbar, and Lukaku was in the way of the shot. That wasn't Lukaku's fault, but it's so unlucky. And Man City's goal was very lucky. It's a deflected cross which just falls to Rodri perfectly, and yes, it's a great finish, and Inter weren't ruthless with their finishing. But you know what? Man City, since the owners took over, they spent 1.5 billion euros. 1.5 billion euros. And what do they have to show for it? One Champions League. Now they have the same amount of Champions League trophies as Aston Villa. And Man City, guess what? You have half as many Champions League trophies as Nottingham Forest. So you still have a long way to go until you catch my club, Liverpool, who have 6 Champions League trophies. And yes, Guardiola is a great manager. Is there any excuse for Guardiola to just win one Champions League since 2011? I mean, Guardiola managed the best Bayern Munich team who won the treble before he took over, and the best Man City side in the history of Manchester City, and they have unlimited resources. They are sponsored and backed by the richest country in the world, one of the richest countries in the world, something that shouldn't even be allowed in football, that you have a whole country financing your football club. How is this still alive? How is this still allowed? How can Man City keep getting away with the cheating, the financial fair play rule breaking, the Premier League rule breaking? They have 115 charges against them in the Premier League. They had basically a Champions League ban. They were kicked out of Europe by UEFA. They wouldn't even be in this competition if that ban was upheld. But the Man City lawyers found a technicality that some of the punishment should be time barred, and that's how they got reinstated into the Champions League. They shouldn't even be in the Champions League, and I mean, it's absolutely crazy. For example, Liverpool, since the Man City owners took over, their net spend is 500 million euros. So Man City's net spend is 1.5 billion euros, not their total spend, which is absolutely crazy. I think their total spend since 2008, it must be like 2 billion euros, something like that. Not pounds, euros I'm talking about. But Liverpool literally have half of the net spend of Manchester City, and we have been since 2008, I think, to 3 Champions League finals. And I mean, Man City are just almost a lot of things that they did are brilliant. Off the pitch, they built brilliant training facilities, and yes, I will give credit to them. On the football pitch, they also did magnificently this season. They won the treble, which is a historic treble. Only Manchester United before, in 1999, did win a treble, but that was with a lot of homegrown players, and also Man United was the first club in English football to win the treble. And my only positive from tonight is that Man United fans are suffering so badly. Not only did they see their city rivals win the Champions League, but they see them equaling their treble historic season. And that must hurt Man United fans so much. But Man City shouldn't be in this position. They should have been relegated to non-league football because of their 115 charges, and also they should have been like their trophies should have been taken away. I mean, Juventus did even like less bad things in the Calciopoli scandal in Italy, and their titles were stripped, and they got big points deductions this season, Juventus, but the Premier League just don't have the bottle, don't have the balls to punish Man City. At least that's what we see so far, and it's a very dangerous precedent. If the Premier League like just brushing this under the carpet, and if they don't punish Manchester City, then the Newcastle owners will just do the same, and it will be just who is the richest country sponsoring a team. That's where it will go. The most of the trophies. Yes, there are cautionary tales like Paris Saint-Germain. They spent almost the same amount of money as Man City in the past like 5, 6, 7 years. They couldn't get a Champions League trophy, but because they lost to Bayern in the final. But sooner or later these teams will inevitably end up winning a lot of trophies, because football and money talks in nowadays, and that's where sadly our game is going. Football is more and more about money and about who can buy the richest players, who can buy the biggest players, who can give them biggest wages. I mean, there should be a salary cap in football, and there should be a lot of very strict rules on how much you can spend and what kind of sponsorships you can get, because the country sponsoring your team shouldn't be able to own your team as well. I mean, it's absolutely crazy that, for example, Newcastle was bought by Saudi Arabia, and now a Saudi Arabian company who is owned by the country is sponsoring Newcastle. I mean, how is that not a conflict of interest? How is that not not illegal in the Premier League? I mean, it probably is, but they are getting away with it with the loopholes and everything. And I mean, Man City only didn't get punished because they could hire 20 of the richest lawyers, I mean the biggest lawyers for the most money, and they were just threatening UEFA to sue them into oblivion. Man City are so rich because the country that they are owned by is so rich that they can actually bankrupt UEFA by lawsuits. I mean, how is that allowed? It's absolutely crazy that football has got to this, that these clubs like Man City, never in my wildest dreams did I imagine when they were taken over by the United Arab Emirates that they would end up winning the Champions League one day. Because they were actually, by English football standards, not even a mid-table club. They were yo-yoing between the Premier League and the Championship, the second division. And yes, they have some history. They won a few titles and trophies back in the 60s and 70s, and they won the Cup Winners' Cup. But they were never like a juggernaut, they were never a giant. And I'm not saying that clubs shouldn't come up from there, but they should do that organically. They shouldn't be able to just buy their way to a Champions League win. They shouldn't be able to buy their way to 5 Premier League titles. What happens if this goes on for another 30 and 40 years? And Man City will be with the most titles in English football history. I mean, will that be okay? Will that be fair? That just because a country can spend more money than anybody else in English football, that Man City one day, maybe even in my lifetime, in the next 50 years, they could become the club with the most trophies in English football. Will that be right? That sickens me to my stomach. That shouldn't be happening. I'm sorry, but there should be some rules and laws, because everybody should be following the rules. Otherwise, it's not a fair competition. And I mean, it's not even a fair competition anyway, because Man City's owners are richer than anybody else, bar Newcastle. Now Newcastle's owners are richer than anybody else. Is this how football should be? No, absolutely not. And I mean, yes, there has been eras of dominance. And I think if Guardiola leaves Man City won't be as successful. And we have to give credit to Guardiola. But you also have to give context. Some people are saying Guardiola is the best manager to ever live. And that's absolute nonsense. Because if Bill Shankly or Bob Paisley or Sir Alex Ferguson was given the resources and the kind of teams and the kind of players that Guardiola managed in his career, who is to say that those managers wouldn't have won even more trophies than Guardiola? I mean, for Guardiola not to win the Champions League since 2011 is a failure. With the kind of teams that they had under Guardiola, with the kind of players that he had under his disposal, he can only win the Champions League when he has one of the best or if not the best player playing for his team, because he won 2 Champions Leagues with Messi, who was the best player in the world, and now Erling Haaland, probably the best player in the world this season alone. If you just see this season, he's better than Mbappe, Messi, Ronaldo, everybody. So Guardiola can only win the Champions League when he has the best player in the world playing for his team, and when he has players who are not on that level, he can't win the Champions League. So that's why I'm not falling for this, that Guardiola is like the greatest manager to ever live, because yes, he might end up with the most trophies when he retires, but that's because he managed the richest and the biggest clubs with the best players. And yes, you still have to deliver trophies and titles, and that's very, very difficult. I still consider Jurgen Klopp a better manager than Guardiola. I still consider Carlo Ancelotti a better manager than Guardiola. Can Guardiola do what Jurgen Klopp did with Mainz, with Dortmund, with Liverpool, to bring them up from a second division team, or from mid-table mediocrity, or from bankruptcy in the case of Dortmund, to winning 2 Bundesliga titles ahead of Bayern, who are absolutely the richest clubs in Germany? Liverpool won 8 trophies with Jurgen Klopp, when they had a net spend as big as Aston Villa. Teams like Arsenal have a bigger net spend than Liverpool since Jurgen Klopp took over. But Liverpool have done something that is very, very special, because they started from mid-table actually, and Guardiola wouldn't be able to do that. Guardiola wouldn't be able to bring Mainz up from the second division when they were struggling again and fighting against relegation in the second division of German football. Guardiola couldn't do what Jurgen Klopp did at Dortmund, taking over a club almost bankrupt and winning 2 Bundesliga titles with them, plus a Champions League final, while they had to spend very little on a shoestring budget. Also Liverpool, £30 million net spent per season under Jurgen Klopp so far. Guardiola wouldn't be able to win 8 trophies with this setup. That's my point. But yeah, feel free to argue with me in the comments below, and thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed this. Have a nice day. See you later. Goodbye.